Hello, friends. This is Stephen Kelly, aka Bald Beastie, Mechanics Guy for 13th Moon Games here, and we are going through the mechanics basics. So basically, the basics of mechanics for Coven Crucible. So this is not the super pretty core rulebook. This is just the bare bones text PDF of the core rulebook that we used. So I'm going to be going through this and touching on some of these topics. And this is, again, a thing that you can do as well. But I wanted to just make some clarifications. So that way, when you come upon something you may not be able to answer, you can always just check with one of these videos. That's what these videos are for. They are for you, the storyteller, the player, all of that. So that way you can have answers if you need them or assistance if you need. So let's dive right in. Mechanics. There are a few terms that you'll see tossed around quite a bit um, in this. So things like formula, target number, modifiers, levels of success, difficulty rating, level of difficulty, although we don't use that very often. Difficulty rating is generally the big one, DR, which we use. And there is a chart, handy dandy chart, at the end of the text or at the end of the book when you get your core rulebook that will have uh, what those difficulty ratings translate to as far as target numbers. So let's get right in. So a formula is the attribute and skill and subskill combination that the storyteller will provide based on what they think best fits the circumstance. And if you watch the storyteller primer video I recorded earlier, you will know that this is flexible. It's a formula flexibility. The storyteller may give you a formula, um, say you want to pick a lock, right? And so the storyteller may say, all right, give me an agility plus underworld plus lockpicking. And you don't have that, or at least you're not very good at it, but you are good at something like, say, larceny. So you ask, hey, look, how about this? Can I do agility plus underworld plus larceny? And if it fits the scene, then yes. If the storyteller says no, well, then that's the scene, and that's something you have to come up with. And there are reasons why they will say no. There are reasons why they may not say no. So as long as you have a really good level of communication, you'll be fine. So attribute, skill, subskill combination. That's the formula, right? So if your character wants to do something, you want to do a flip, it's agility plus athletics plus acrobatics. You want to punch a goon in the face, that's going to be, agility or body. Combat is based on either one. It's not particular. Agility or body plus martial plus unarmed. Or if you want to say, I want to make a really delicious dinner. So the storyteller could say, all right, well, give me a will plus artistic plus crafting. You're like, well, I don't have crafting, but I do have a lot of survival because my character has been out in the wilds and been able to. He goes camping all the time. So uh, let's try. How about can I do will plus technical plus survival? Which if that makes sense, great. If it doesn't, well, then there's that too. But that's the whole idea. Formula flexibility. Let's be creative about it. Incite creativity. So that's what a formula is. The target number, which is abbreviated as TN, it's the sum. That's the number that you need to roll equal to or under on 2d12 to succeed. Okay. Some rolls are pass fail. Some rolls need levels of success, which we will talk about in a minute. But then there are modifiers to that formula. There's negative modifiers and positive modifiers. There are traits in the system that add levels to the target number and levels to levels of success. There are traits that also, while they may add positive, they also have negatives to target numbers. For instance, fearless gives its level as a positive modifier to any athletics formula or martial formula, but subtracts from any awareness formula. So there's that. So keep those in mind. Negative and positive modifiers will modify, which is why it's called that, the target number of a formula until you get the final target number. That said, what's really super important to remember is that a formula can only have one magical positive modifier and one magical negative modifier. So if you have a magic item that gives +6 to martial, or not martial, to unarmed, so it makes you punch better, but then somebody casts a buff on you, a magical plus unarmed, they cast this buff on you, and their levels of success are 10, then that means you would not have a +16. You take the highest modifier, or you can choose whichever you want. If you want to take the lower modifier, you can. It's player choice, but you can only have one magical. Since both of those are magical modifiers, you would not be able to use both of them, just one of them, if that makes sense. Same goes for negative. So if somebody hexes somebody to be bad at combat, they can't also then um, hex them again to make them even worse. It's only one magical positive modifier and one magical negative modifier. They can have any number of mundane positive and negative modifiers, but only one magical. That helps keep things nice, tidy, and fair, honestly. And so then using the formula, you generate a target number. Then using the modifiers, you modify that target number. And once the modified target number is determined, you just roll 2d12. And if you roll equal to or less than that target number, that means you were successful. You're going to see target numbers that might be up in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and especially when you have people that are assisting, yeah, then that is going to be obvious that you're going to roll successfully under 2d12. But there are some things to consider also when you're rolling. And you're still going to want to make that roll, even though it seems like an automatic success, because you might get a crit. And I'll explain those in a minute. All right. So how well you succeed. So if it's just a pass-fail roll, then levels of success aren't really concerning at all. Either you succeed or you fail. Level of success, it's essentially how well you succeed at something, if that's important to the role. And the storyteller will tell you if it's a pass-fail roll or I need levels of success. They'll ask you for what's your LOS. A number that is equal to level of the sub-skill used in the formula, plus or minus modifiers, like traits will add to levels of success, things like that. So if you want to punch somebody, how much damage do I do? Well, obviously, if you have a super high target number, you're going to succeed at hitting the person. But how well you hit them, how hard you hit them, how much damage does my spell do, how potent is the ward that I have put up so that I don't get hurt, things like that. That's what levels of success determine. And it's based off of the sub skill that's used. So if you're creating a ward, you're going to cast a ward on yourself to protect you from harm. Cool. Your formula is going to be magic plus magical plus warding plus any modifiers. And then that generates a target number. If you successfully roll under that target number, you have created a ward that's going to protect you against harm. And levels of success determine things like how long it lasts, how effective it is, all of that. So let's say you ended up with a target number of 33 and an LOS, a level of success of 10. That means if you roll under a 33 on 2d12, which you're going to do, then you're going to succeed and your levels of success are 10. That means that ward will last 10 minutes and it's going to create a difficulty rating for anybody trying to harm you. And there's a couple ways that can be applied. We'll discuss that in a minute. But difficulty rating. All right. So now that we have the basics of formula, target number, modifiers, and levels of success, we're going to talk about difficulty rating. That ward you cast earlier, okay? That's going to create a difficulty rating for someone to harm you. Now, it could be difficulty rating for somebody to actually hit you, or difficulty rating for somebody to actually cause damage. This is where language is specific. You need to specifically say, I want to ward myself against damage, or I want to ward myself against harm. That could be interpreted a couple different ways, so that's why it's really important to make sure you clarify with your storyteller what it is you want to do. Intention is super important. Um, so difficulty rating. Uh, there will be difficulty ratings assigned to tasks, depending on how hard things are, based on what the storyteller decides. Okay, like it says here, picking a lock or hacking a server. Something that's easy, there's no negative modifier. Something that's a moderate difficulty rating, it's going to be a modifier equal to 1/4 of your target number. So if you have a target number of 40 for this ward, and you want to cast a ward, but there's a moderate difficulty to it because somebody hexed you, then it's going to give you a modifier equal to 1/4, a negative modifier equal to 1/4 of the character's target number. So 1/4 of 40 is 10. So you're going to have a negative modifier of 10 to that, which makes your target number 30. A hard difficulty rating is equal to half of the character's target number as a negative modifier. So that means that target number of 40 becomes a 20. Severe, which is the hardest difficulty rating there is going to reduce it by 3/4. So that 40 becomes a 10. And you have to roll that under on 2d12. That or under on 2d12. Positive modifiers are always added before the difficulty rating is applied. So you come up with all those positive modifiers for the roll, traits, assistance, things like that. And then you apply it all together, and then you apply the difficulty rating. Negative modifiers are always added to the difficulty rating or after the difficulty rating is applied. So that means if, say, you have a negative modifier of -3, and you're doing a ward that is has a severe difficulty rating, then that means your target number is 10, and then a -3 on top of that is a 7. Okay, so positive added before, negative added after. Easy peasy. And then it gives you an example here in the text, and this is in the text. It's just not the pretty book. Because negative modifiers may still apply after the difficulty rating has been applied, largely due to other circumstances. Trying to target somebody to fog bank while they're also warded could apply the difficulty for the environmental penalty first, then the warding would apply afterward. Keeping in mind, only one magical negative modifier. Level of difficulty. So this is where we talked about that ward. So I have 10 levels of success on my warding. Okay, that's going to look down here at this table. You're going to see right here, that will generate a hard level of difficulty. Okay, so that's going to be a difficulty rating of hard for anyone trying to harm you or do damage to you. How that is applied, again, depends on how you intend it and what you explain to your GM or your storyteller. So that means that it could apply to damage. So I want to have a hard level ward against damage, which means any damage is done to me. So that's not going to affect their chances to hit me, but it will affect how much damage I take from that hit. So if they end up doing 10 levels of damage to me, my ward is going to, since it's hard, and we know hard up here is 1/2, that means that that ward will block 5 of that 10 damage. And I'll take 10 levels, or I'll take 5 levels of damage. Opposed rolls. This is really important too. This is where when you're taking an action that's opposed by someone else. So let's say you're going to try to lie to someone. It all depends on the perspective. And generally it's on the actor who is acting to do something. So the example they use here, Jackson is at the bar, approaches Detective Lopez, who's off duty and enjoying a drink. And when she asks him who he is, he lies and says Polaris. His deceit LOS is 12, so that would mean that Detective Lopez has to roll a conversation or deceit roll at a severe difficulty, because 12 or higher right here is a severe, to discern the statement is false. If, however, Detective Lopez states before Jackson approaches that she is actively seeking out falsehoods from anyone she talks to, and she has a conversation level of success of 12, up here 12 is severe, that would mean that when she asks Jackson who he is and he says Polaris, he has to roll his deceit at a severe difficulty in order for her to believe that the lie was the truth. Essentially, opposed rolls are creating a difficulty rating for someone, whether or not it's the actor who is lying or if it's the person who is acting in that they are trying to discern whether the lie is false or true depends on the situation. And it's going to take a little bit to get used to this. But once again, once you get over that big learning curve, you'll be fine. This will become a second nature, super easy. All right, reducing difficulty ratings, aka buffing. There may come a situation where they have a magical effect that helps them create a difficulty rating for opposed rolls. So I want to, if I have to, like, say I have to deliver a public speech, and I'm not that great at it, but I am really good at magic. So I'm going to cast uh, and it's a persuasive public speech because I want to convince everyone to vote for the politician of my choice. So I'm going to buff myself just before the speech, and my magical plus persuasion levels of success are a 12. That means then I cast that. It's going to last for 12 minutes. And while I'm giving this speech, as long as it doesn't last more than 12 minutes, uh, it will make any difficulties I face reduced by severe. So that, in other words, these people are determined to vote for the person I don't want them to. The storyteller says, well, I'm going to say you have a hard level of difficulty to convince them to vote for the person you want them to, because they're already convinced to vote for this other person. So knowing that I don't have a very good persuasion, but I have a really good magical, and persuasion LOS because of my magical buffs or my magical traits and positive modifiers, meaning I have like a familiar, I have some things that help me, that assist me in specialized training in magical things like that. As long as they're not magical modifiers, as in like magic items or spells, this spell will take effect. So I cast that magical persuasion roll, and I have 12 levels of success. That means that my severe buff would reduce that hard level of difficulty to an easy because it was greater or equal to the difficulty rating. So now I don't have a modifier in my roll. I roll it. I convince them all to vote for the person I want them to. It's pretty cool. So buffing is a thing that you can do. It's very beneficial and you can do it to other people. You just have to overcome their magic resistance. We'll discuss that in the spellcasting portion video of this mechanics. Failing on a roll. Some situations characters fail. If your target number is reduced to a 10, you roll a 12, means you failed. You can try again. Not combat, but any other thing. You can try again. The second attempt, which means you can try it again, only one more time. And that second attempt gains a +1 positive modifier to the target number. Because you made a mistake, you might have learned from that mistake. So we're going to give you a +1. In the if you have a really severe difficulty rating, that's probably not going to make or break that roll. Not going to mean much of a difference because you had positive modifiers before difficulty ratings. But it might. You never know. But you can only try again once. So if you fail to pick a lock, you can try again with a +1 modifier to your target number. The number 13. Remember when I talked about critical rolls, critical successes, critical failures? This is it. The number 13 is super important. So let's say you have a target number that is 52, but you have a severe difficulty rating. That lowers it to a 13. Okay? That means your target number is a 13. So what are you going to do? You're going to roll. If you happen to roll a 12 or less, you succeed. That's great. If you roll a 13, since that 13 is the target number and a success, it's a critical success. How that plays out is up to the storyteller, but generally, critical successes double your levels of success. So, holy heck, I have 10 levels of success, but I rolled a 13. That means I have 20. That's a lot. That means you are exceptionally successful at that action. If you're doing damage, wow. If you're creating a ward that protects against damage, wow. Well, okay. Magical blocking, because once a difficulty rating is applied, there's not a mechanical difference between a 12 and a 20. But if you are, doing a ward in the moment in combat, and we'll talk about that in the next video, that could mean the difference between getting knocked out and not taking any damage. So, going on from there, the 13 is a critical success if you succeed on the roll. If you fail, it's a critical failure, and how that again plays out depends on the storyteller. So, especially in things like divination, where if you roll a 13 and it's a critical failure, that's bad news for the diviner. They're gonna suffer some negative effects. Last thing I want to talk about before we get into the next video, which is already, this video is 21 minutes long. I don't want to get too much longer. Assisting. When not in combat, a witch can have assistants, help with an action, or accomplish a goal. There's no limits to the number of assistants that can help, and you can include the witch's servitors or the servitors of other witches. Except for magical actions. Since servitors can't cast spells, they can't assist with magical actions, but they can assist with things like lockpicking, intimidating, things like that. Familiars cannot assist. They already add a pretty substantial benefit to magical actions. They cannot assist on non-magical actions, and they don't assist on any actions. They just grant a positive modifier to both target number and LOS, and you'll see that in the trait section. So how assistance works. I have 3 friends, and each of them have a subskill in intimidation of 3. So that means, let's say they have, if they were to make a intimidation roll, their intimidation LOS would be a 3. And they're going to help me intimidate a person who I don't have much intimidation. I have a 1. All right. So my level of success would be 1. But if I have 3 of my friends help me, they get to add their level of success to my target number for intimidation, which means they get to add, if there's 3 of them, that's 3, 6, 9. So me and my 3 buddies are intimidating someone. They're helping me. I get to add their level of success. Each of them has a 3. That means I get to add 9 to my target number. But better yet, if I'm successful, I get to add 3 to my levels of success because there's 3 assistants. So my 1 becomes a 4, which is better than a 1. Not as good as a 12, but there it is. Comes in handy in a pinch. This is the whole purpose of, you create a specialist, you're good at a few things, but then you get a group of people together, and each of them can help the one be better at a task, if that makes sense. All right, well, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and there'll be another video coming soon on mechanics combat. Thanks. Have a great day.